Hey, this is Rob Swanson with the Real Estate Mogul Show. Let's get into it. What's up, everybody? Rob Swanson here, back with another episode of the Real Estate Mogul Show. We have the studio packed again with, actually, we got a full crew this time.
We're back.
Yeah. Henry's not out fishing. Mike's not out on vacation. Like, Joe, you and I are the only ones in the studio all the time.
I know. We were in here troubleshooting a lot of technical weirdness.
Right. Hey, let's just run it around real quick. Who's with me here today? Say a hello. Let's start it over here.
Yep, me again, Henry.
Me again.
Me again. Everyone's joking that I've been going fishing, but it's not like I've been catching anything. So is it really fishing if you're not catching anything?
Yeah, it's called fishing.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
I've been doing a lot of it and not catching much.
So you've been fishing, not catching.
Yeah, I have.
Where'd you go yesterday again?
Cheeseman Canyon. It's a lower section of the South Platte than like where we fished last year.
Yeah.
Much lower, about 2 reservoirs lower, but really, really beautiful. Probably one of the more beautiful places in Colorado I've been to.
It's beautiful. Cheeseman's beautiful. 11 Mile Canyon, right below 11 Mile Reservoir, is awesome.
So
It's
we were
tight
gonna go there.
canyon. Yeah.
We were gonna go there, but just the drive to Cheeseman is like only an hour 15.
Yeah.
It's really easy to get there, and the hike end's not that bad.
Yep.
Just really hard fishing. Really
Nice.
hard. Yeah.
Nice.
Have you fished it, Rob?
It's been a while since I've been into Cheeseman. It's usually busy, so I usually try to go somewhere which is less crowded.
Yeah.
Wasn't too many people there yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean,
Is that right?
the parking lot was the parking lot was full, but it wasn't overflowing like I had read.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a 3-mile stretch, so there's plenty of opportunities to fish there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Mike,
I'll-
what's
yeah.
up?
I've just been not fishing. So,
What's been going on, man?
yeah. Church camp coming off that. That's been good. My wife.
Tell the other story about church camp, the ambush story, because this was great. Last week we talked about the spearing the fish in the pond story.
Yeah. So this is still, I think we're still recovering to some degree. So I was in a group, an elective they call it, that was military. And so we did a lot of yes sir, no sir, shooting BB guns and bow and arrows. My wife, for the last 2 years, has run a group called Messy Work, and they just do messy art. There was a mud pit this year that absolutely qualifies as messy. So anyway, and then there was another elective called Game On that was next to us. We were outside in a big field next to the church. So Game On plays games all week. So we didn't know this, but we found out very quickly after the ambush. One of the leaders of Game On went over to my wife and said, "Hey, we're going to go pick a water fight with military, and then you guys hide out, and as soon as it starts, you just come in and ambush him from behind." So he comes over to us, and he says, he played it pretty cool. I heard the conversation. He was talking to Barry on our team. But he said, "Hey, you guys want to have water gun fight?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure." So this guy comes out like William Wallace. So everybody in his group is behind him. And he grabs his best Scottish accent, and he comes out doing this William Wallace thing. And so our group, we've got 25 kids. They're all, yeah, let's go. It's a water gun fight. So they run over, and as soon as our group engages, my wife's group with Messy Work, they were hiding behind the building watching all of this unfold, and then they came running out. So about 10 seconds into this, there's 50 to 60 kids, squirt guns, water balloons, 15 liters, having a water gun fight.
Incredible.
Right.
It's pretty awesome.
It was fun.
That's cool. Joe, what about you?
Hey, I'm excited to be here. Got off the last weekend. I did that meditation retreat. Got hit with mad weather. Stuck in a cave for a couple hours. Not stuck. We were in a cave to stay dry, up in the southern Colorado mountains down by Saguache, and it was awesome because it was all of a. It was nice when we walked up to these rocks, and then we were in there for six hours maybe, and hanging out, and it just came in. I mean, I had a video I'll have to show you later. It was just the whole valley filled up with like clouds and wind, and it was gnarly, but it was fun. We had a good time. Bunch of fun people. About a dozen of us were up there and hanging out.
That's crazy. That reminds me, last week we talked a little bit about my flight from Nashville back into Denver. Mm-hmm. And as I was coming in, I saw where I wanted to go, right? I landed out in Kansas to full fuel up and head into Denver because I knew the weather was kind of bad. And so I wanted enough fuel that if I needed to go back, I could just go back. And I thought I could get through this line of clouds, so I beelined it straight for this open hole, and it started to close off on me. So I changed my route. I was going to go to the south side of town. Literally 20 minutes before I get to where I'm going to turn north over the Centennial Airport and north up into Rocky Mountain Metro, thunderstorms just engulfed the entire southwest part of the Metro Denver area. So like that hole closed off. My access to the north was closed off by thunderstorms. My access to the south was closed off by thunderstorms. I literally only had like this little swatch of open, like good weather right over Denver International Airport and right over the city. And so I called up air traffic control and I asked them if they would give me a Bravo clearance, so clearance into the Denver International Airway air system airspace. And would they give me a clearance to fly right through their airspace straight towards Rocky Mountain Metro to get home? Because literally that was my only shot. And anyway, long story short, it felt like what you're describing because they did a couple minutes later give me a clearance. So I was able to beeline it straight across the Bravo into Metro. But as I'm landing at Metro, the winds are starting to whip up. Like I got 30-knot winds.
Dang.
And it's gusting, and I got thunderstorms to the north and thunderstorms to the south, and literally got the plane put away into the hangar, and it just closed up on us. So, like, it happens fast. It just comes out of nowhere.
Yep.
And happens fast.
And then it was 93 degrees yesterday.
Yeah, right.
How incredible is that? Like, so nice, too. Wow.
Yeah, it's nutty. It's nutty. Well, hey, I want to talk a little bit about two topics today. I want to talk about our process because our process of investing virtually. And that's kind of the theme of the conversation today. But also I want to bring a little bit of the sort of AI and technology conversation into that and where we see some of the industry headed. I got back, the whole reason I was flying and coming back from Nashville, and then before that, coming back from Tampa, was I had spoken at the Collective Genius Mastermind down in Tampa. And shout out to those guys, great group of guys. Jason Medley runs that, so really good group. And I went in and I spoke on the disruptive technology and some of where we see technology taking real estate investing over the next year, 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And it's really hard to predict out much beyond a year. In fact, if you look back over the last 90 days, it's hard to predict out a week because every single week things are changing and happening and evolving so rapidly. It's pretty insane. And so I think we'll get into some of that discussion, but I want to start us in the virtual investing conversation. And why would somebody not just invest in the 10 square miles or the 10-mile radius around their house, where they live, where they can drive to it, touch it, feel it, smell it, see it, hear it, live it, right? Why would somebody pick somewhere else? And, I don't know, you guys have been around that concept forever, right? So, Mike, when we first started working together back in 2008, I had come off of investing virtually for the last probably 5 or so years. In 2008, the market crashed, And Denver being a boom bust market, it crashed to the bottom. And so I brought my capital and I brought my skills as an investor back to Denver. So your first exposure was local.
Correct.
And then as the market began to change and shift and margins changed and that kind of thing, it evolved virtual. And Henry, your first experience was virtual.
All virtual.
And all virtual.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, jump in, guys. Give me your thought on, maybe Mike, maybe you jump in and give some thoughts on when you first were exposed to real estate investing and it was local, and then you started to experience the market move and shift and change and began to observe my decision to go virtual again.
Yep.
What was going through your head, if anything?
Yeah. So when it's local, because I went on a lot of these appointments, drive down, see it, inspect it, see what the house feels like, smells like. And those of you that have been through vacant houses know that smell is a big part of the experience. I think with all this technology, I would love Scratch-n-SNIFF digital pictures. Right? So that
Can we incorporate that into FreedomSoft? Like when you look at the snapshot.
so that as investors,
You just scratch the screen of the
get a
house
little-
and you can smell what it
get a little bit closer to the screen and you can smell how many cats have lived in this house for the last decade. Because that'll influence your construction budget. So Rob, here's what I remember about it is you talked about virtual and that was just normal. And that was my only exposure to it. So I just assumed it was normal. But then I quickly realized that it's not normal. And I think from coaching people for a long time now, my best understanding, or my understanding of why people don't think it's normal and why they think virtual real estate investing is so complicated is because they view buying investment property or even wholesaling the same way they view buying a house to live in. And it's not nobody. People buy real estate sight unseen to live in, but it's not very common.
Mm-hmm.
The large majority of those transactions, not only have people seen the house one time, they've seen it multiple times. Then they pay for a full inspection. Then they go back and see it again. And that's the process that for them is quote unquote normal. This is how you buy real estate. And then they get exposed to real estate from the investing side and maybe wholesaling. And they say, oh, cool. So I'm not going to buy a house to live in now. I'm going to buy a house or put a property under contract to wholesale. But their mind goes right back to, well, when I bought a house to live in, or if I was going to buy a house to live in, here's how I would do it. So it must be the same process.
Yeah.
So true.
Right.
And then they hear investors talk about, like, Henry, you have never seen a house that you've made money on in person.
Mm-mm. Yeah, no, I have a story about this.
Right. And that is so foreign to them. How is it like right? How is that even possible?
Well, let me set the frame on this for a second, because I think for everybody listening or watching, if you start to understand that not every market is created equal, and what I mean by that is across the United States, from the East Coast to the West Coast, Canada to Mexico, and everywhere in between, we've got major metropolitan areas, we've got secondary or minor metropolitan areas, and we've got tertiary or smaller metropolitan areas. And then we have just smatterings of smaller cities all over the place. And so I like to think of, and I typically break markets into two primary categories. And a market is either a boom bust market or it's a price stable market. Now, I generally think then of those markets as retail markets. I think of them as wholesale markets, and I think of them as resort markets. So sort of three categories. And your resort markets, we're going to kind of set aside. They're a little different animal, but they sort of function like a hybrid between a retail market and a wholesale market. And so If we go back to the primary categories, though, of just boom and bust and price stable, what that's really speaking to is the rise and fall of real estate prices and the rise and fall of rental prices in a particular market. And you can look back on the housing price index for the past probably 50 years now. I think it started somewhere in the early 70s, where they started to report and create an index that tracked price movement across markets across the country. And so if we first understand that, if we can look historically, we can see, and I'll give an example. We'll take a market like, let's just say Indianapolis, in the Rust Belt, kind of the Bible Belt, Midwest, right? And contrast that against where we live here in Denver. And if you look historically, prices in Indianapolis go up a little bit, and then they come down a little bit, and then they go up a little bit, and then they come down a little bit on this cycle over time. Whereas Denver,
I call that the kiddie roller coaster.
Right, the little kiddie roller coaster.
Right.
Exactly. Whereas Denver
is the fun one.
Is the fun one, right? It rides up and then it crashes. And then it rides up and then it crashes. Now, there's an argument to suggest that where we are at in the cycle of things, the next boom bust is going to look and feel a little bit different than what we have had over America's 250-year history, and particularly maybe over America's last 50-year history, since the dollar was taken off the gold standard and we became a true fiat currency, not backed by anything, where it became a true debt-driven society. And there's been multiple cycles, the 1973-74 boom bust, the 1990-91 boom bust, the 2000-ish, but really more the 2008 massive housing boom bust, and here we are today. So there's been 3 short-term debt cycles since the dollar was taken off the gold standard. And we're at a place now where we've loaded the system with so much debt. How do we navigate through it? So there's argument to say that going forward looks a little different than historically, but we have to understand first, why would we invest virtually? It's to take advantage of one of those two things. And when a boom bust market is in the booming side of the cycle, and when it starts to boom up where it's more affordable for someone to rent than buy. So when the boom phase gets to the place where prices and financing availability makes ownership more expensive than rent in the boom bust cycle, I stop as it's approaching that. I stop investing in the boom bust market and I go into a price stable market. A price stable market is a market where you can consistently buy for cash flow. Now, I love to buy in a boom bust market when I'm buying at the bottom after it has busted. And I like to buy because I know that the cycle of recovery is much faster and much greater historically. So the cycle of recovery from the bottom of the bust to the top of the boom is short, and a lot of wealth is built in that phase of the cycle. And so just setting the frame for people to understand that why would you invest virtually is for that reason. Now, you guys can jump in and add commentary, but I first saw this years ago. And I first saw this in Tacoma, Washington. When I first got into real estate investing, I came in, I took blind, massive action, and I made money. And I did this long enough ago that I was faxing, okay, a fax machine. You guys know what that is, right?
Is this where
Mike
the fax
knows what
button
I know
on
what a
Freedom
fax
Soft
is.
Mike knows what a fax machine is. Joe knows what a fax machine is. Henry, I don't even know if you know what a fax machine is.
All I hear is you're the reason why there's a fax button in FreedomSoft right now.
Right. Right. So I was faxing in checks, copies of checks of closed real estate deals to the seminar company, which I didn't even know that it was a seminar company back in the day, to the seminar company that had trained and taught me. And, I was just like, I was excited about what I was doing and having success. And long story short, I ultimately joined that organization as one of their coaches and one of their mentors early on, because I was having massive success. Now, I wasn't any different than anybody else out in the world. Anybody can do this. I was taking massive, consistent action and failing my way forward. Period. That's all I was doing, because I didn't know any better. And I ended up on a mentoring trip in Tacoma, Washington. And we ended up in Tacoma, Washington, up in the area called the Hilltop area. And the Hilltop area back in this day was distressed and beat up and run down and rough. It wasn't a great area. And I saw it in about April. And I was like, okay, there's a little bit of activity. There's a ton of distressed inventory, like opportunities galore, but not a lot of buyers yet. And so I go there, I leave, I make a mental note. I come back in September, so whatever that is, 5 months later, roughly, and same process, same market evaluation, me kind of dropping into a new city, working with an investor for 3 to 4 days and helping them get their business up and running. I've been doing this for a long time. And we end up back in the Hilltop area. And I start looking around and I see roll-offs and I see dumpsters and I see construction crews and I see painters and I see guys doing lawn work and I see all of this rehab activity happening. In 5 months, it went from like this distressed sort of abandoned area to this revitalizing area of activity and happening. And the price differential over that 5-month period of time, because I really paid attention to price back in April to September, was around a $50,000 to $75,000 differential. So what guys and gals could buy the houses for in April versus what they were buying them for, not purchase to sale. I'm talking purchase to purchase, was about a $50,000 differential over 5 months. So if you could buy it for 20 grand in April, you were paying 70 for the same house
5 months later
in September.
Yeah, same condition.
That's where this idea of virtual investing first struck me. And it formed the framework for my investment theory and my investment thesis ever since. Because I thought to myself, if I could figure out where that was happening and participate in that type of compressed, accelerated growth, I could win. I could win faster than the guy who's just investing over in XYZ, El Paso, Texas, who doesn't know what's happening in Tacoma, Washington. He's just doing his thing, and it's the same price April and the same price in September, whereas the guy in Tacoma just made 50 grand just by buying in the right market at the right time. And so that started me on this journey of how do I track markets? How do I pay attention to markets? How do I participate in markets that are swinging up? And then you have to decide, okay, what's your investment objective, right? And so sometimes it's cash generation, sometimes it's wealth and equity building, sometimes it's cash flow creation. And so depending on the objective and the thing you're trying to do, you will pick a real estate market that serves that objective. Mike, you look like you got something to say.
I had a question.
Okay.
I think I always look like I have something to say, maybe. Do you remember what prompted? Was it just simple supply and demand and a local investor said, hey, let's go to Hilltop, and other people followed? Or was there something local in the economy that spurred Hilltop?
It was,
do you remember?
I'm trying to remember what the driver per se was, but what I believe was the rest of the market had kind of gone through a construction boom. So there had been a lot of infrastructure investment. So there was a lot of money and a lot of construction company activity and a lot of labor and jobs, and there was a lot of stuff happening. And any time there's large infrastructure projects like highway reconstruction or airport reconstruction or anything large governmentally driven infrastructure, and where there's a lot of money in the construction sector, you see a boom in the economy. And there had been a boom in the surrounding economy, and that had absorbed a lot of the inventory that investors had been buying in the greater surrounding areas. And all of a sudden, that surrounding inventory became tighter, harder to find. Prices started to go up, driven by the supply and demand of the economy. And so investors always then get smart and they say, well, where can I go and buy and get a good deal, right? Investors are always looking for a good deal. And so the natural sort of evolution of the market, or the natural flow of the market, had investors start to then move and find these pockets where as soon as the money flowed in to that area, it just popped. It just went poof. Yep. And it's crazy to watch.
Right. And the speed that it can happen.
Right.
I mean, demand can change in an instant.
Yes.
Somebody can get on stage at some event with investors in it and say, this is the place to go, and instantly, or, words. And this is word spread fast back then. Word can spread 1,000 times faster than that today.
That's right.
With everything online.
Oh, huge.
So.
Yeah. I was just thinking about that the other day, how, just go back 150 years and it took years for information to travel from the East Coast into the heartland, into the West, and across the country. It took a year or 2 years. And I was just thinking about that. And now, and that's literally something that happens in our country. 150 years ago took years to get out to people and for them to know that something happened. Now, something can't happen in India without me knowing it 8 minutes later.
Now there's an Instagram or a TikTok videos of the top 5 markets to be buying rentals in right now.
Yeah. Because
someone figured that information out and then posted it immediately for everyone to consume.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Pretty crazy.
That's the data side of real estate investing, which I've always been sort of inclined to. That's kind of my engineering background, brings the data piece. And sometimes you can't let the data get in the way of action, but you can let the data guide you towards action.
Here's where I think on every episode I've been on, we've talked about analysis paralysis.
Yeah.
People can get stuck on, I've just got to find the perfect market. And their brain, just like looking at a deal, now it's more macro, right? When people look at a deal, they'll find reasons to not make an offer, to not get involved. They'll do the same thing with markets. Oh, I heard this market is good. And then they'll start digging around, and then a week goes by, and then a month goes by, and then 6 months goes by, and then 5 years goes by, and they still haven't taken action. So
yeah,
I love this remote topic, but we have to always filter it through the lens of, you can get stuck here looking for the perfect market for the next 20 years and not ever get involved.
Right.
Yeah, the data helps, right? I mean, it helped me.
Yeah.
But to a certain extent, right? Everything you've been talking about so far is exactly what I try to run through in my head. And if I were to go into a new rental market, but I already know St. Louis is X, right? That's par for me.
Yep.
And that's what I would probably compare it up to, because I've answered the $1 million question that you said was like, what am I looking for in real estate investing? And for me, it's passive cash flow, right? And I know my market right now provides me for that. So if I were to go somewhere else, if St. Louis did something weird, then that's what I would try to mimic. Whereas if it was something else, then I would use the data to support that, which is, I think, good. But if you get too deep in the weeds, then you get to the point of what Mike's talking about, which is, it's not perfect enough. Or what if this one's a little bit better than the other and grass is always greener kind of thing.
And so that's the question, right? Is there a perfect virtual market to go and invest in?
No.
I was just going to say perfect doesn't exist.
And perfect doesn't exist. The answer to that question is no. There are markets that will serve you more of what you want faster if you pick the market well. But if once you decide the direction and the objective that you have for your real estate investing, again, cash generation, equity and wealth building, or cash flow creation, once you decide the general vein you want to go, you're gonna find a handful of markets, right, that are going to meet that objective. Then the decision you have to make is, which one am I just going to start with?
Mm-hmm.
And just take the action.
Yeah.
Because the answer to is there a perfect market is no.
Yeah, and taking the action is it. Because to go off what you were saying is, as far as people, their mindset being ingrained in buying real estate because they're buying their primary residence. I mean, we go back 3 episodes when we were talking about my journey. Like, that was me. Like, my version of buying a house was, I hire a realtor, I do this. But now it's funny how I talk out in public. If someone were to ask, you have a rental, have you seen it? I'm like, no, I've never seen it. I don't need to see it. I probably will see it one time, maybe none, no times, right? I don't know if I take a trip out there, but I now see me in the people that I'm talking to on the other side of the table because they have the same mindset that I did have. So when I say I've never seen it, you see like their brain just mush up because they're like, what do you mean you haven't seen it?
How is that possible?
Yeah, how is that possible? And when I explain it to them, it starts to make more sense to them because then here's the question. And I just had this on Sunday. I was out to lunch with a couple couples from church, and I'd never met this guy before. He asked me what I did, and I told him, and he said, "Oh, you live here and you have a rental here?" And I was like, "No, I don't have a rental here." He's like, "Oh, you rent out a house somewhere else?" And I was like, "Yeah, in St. Louis." And he said, "Oh, are you from there?" "No." "You ever been there?" "No." "You ever seen it?" "No." And he was like, "What's going on?"
Right. But why is that? Because you were clear on your objective, which was to create passive income. You were clear on the market selection. You weren't going to buy in a boom bust market, right? You couldn't buy in Denver and make it cash flow, right? Without significant capital down, which would diminish your cash on cash return.
Yep.
So you went into a price stable market, and then you bought using what you've learned here. You didn't call a real estate agent. In this case, you didn't buy from another wholesaler. You used your skills and direct to seller marketing to get a deal that was massively discounted because the seller wanted out and the seller wanted out quickly. It was a massive discount that created significantly more cash flow for you on that first acquisition than what probably could have happened in most other scenarios, whether it be in a different market or whether it be a different acquisition strategy.
A lot of people, even on the real estate investing side, even if they're not in the I have to see it mindset, they're, at least this guy's thought was, you buy to sit on it and gain a lot of equity really fast in a market like Denver. And I could see why he would think that way because he has been actively trying to buy a house for him and his wife to live in. Yep. And he's competing in the market in Denver. And he's renting right now. And I basically proved that Denver has changed when the prices, like what you said, by looking up his duplex on FreedomSoft. And I showed him what the investor or the owner that used to probably lived in that duplex paid for and how much they probably cash flow on how much he pays for rent right now. But I said, that person cannot turn around and mimic that right now in Denver's market. And it won't be able to for a while, probably. So this is why, if your goal is to go into cash flow markets, why I couldn't have done it in Denver.
Yeah.
It would have, you could do one, but when you could do one here, you could do 10 somewhere else.
So let's take it top level and then go down, because there's picking the market, and then there's identifying the hot spot within the market to actually produce the results you want. So when we say pick a market, we first just understand boom bust, price stable. That's the first thing that we try to determine. I usually, depending on my objective, I'll consider population. So especially if I'm going in with a wholesale cash generation strategy, I want a larger population, because the buyers that I can flip my deal to, there's a lot more of them. If I'm going to buy and hold, buying for cash flow, I will give up population a little bit. I'll go into smaller markets, as long as the local economy is diversified in some way, not solely reliant on some XYZ plant that exists there, right? And so population for cash creation, if you're a wholesaler going into a market. And then number two, I look for, so population, then I'll go into a smaller market and I'll look for economic diversification if I'm buying for cash flow. But then I'm looking for two things. I'm looking for inventory and I'm looking for activity. I want to know, if I were to pick this particular market, how much inventory is there available to me? I'm looking for what I would call an easy profit city. Generally, if I'm looking to buy for cash flow, or if I'm looking to buy for cash creation, I'm looking for what I would call an easy profit city. And that is enough inventory, or a significant amount of inventory with a substantial investor activity, consistent and a lot of buying in activity by investors. And if I can figure out those two things, my speed to payday is shortened significantly. And that's, I think, where people miss the market selection. Like, if you're trying to figure out, is it market A, is it market B, or is it market C? The first thing that I look at is population. The second thing I look at is inventory. Like, is there deal flow available to me? And the third thing I look at is activity. Are there a lot of buyers buying? And so when I look at those three things, I can start to self-select into market A, B, or C based on my speed to a payday. And that's what I'm looking for, is how fast can I get paid?
When after those three, when would you start, especially if you're doing the cash flow model?
Yep.
When would you look at average rents and median sales prices of houses? I guess that's next.
Yeah, that's what I start to look at next. If I want to buy for cash flow, I'll look at that. I'll say what are the average rents? What are the average price points? But then I'll break it down, and I'll use a tool in FreedomSoft called Zip Finder. And you guys are familiar with it, but it helps you identify the hottest zip codes of investor activity, like where investors are making money in any city. So you can go into St. Louis, for example, or Denver, for example, or any city, for example. Use the Zip Finder tool, and the Zip Finder tool will give you the top zip codes. It will rank the zip codes based on investor activity and where investors are making the most profit. So I'll use that, and then I'll take that information. I'll take maybe my top 3 to 5 zip codes, and I'll ask that inventory activity question again. If I see that investors are making money in this particular zip code, I want to know how much inventory is available in those zip codes that's going to help me go get a deal. And I want to answer a couple of things, because I don't want to be the pioneer when I go into an area, right? I don't want to be the lone wolf, the pioneer, the cowboy that goes in on his horse and saddle and says, I'm going to make this happen. I want to see where investors are already making money, how are they making money, and then I want to copy that success. And so what I'll do is I'll go in and I'll ask a couple of questions. I want to know What are they buying? So are they buying 3 bedrooms, 4 bedrooms, 1 bathrooms, 2 bathrooms, 800 square feet, 1,100 square feet, 2 stories, ranch houses, basements, attached garages, detached garages? I want to know, what are they buying? Then I want to know, where are they buying? So is there a pattern that I can see inside of those zip codes, inside of that geography, where I see investors buying a certain type of property in a certain geography, and I see that consistently. I see a lot of it. And then I want to ask, what are they paying? So what are they buying? Where are they buying? And what are they paying? If I can answer those 3 questions, I can copy success, because now I know what to go after, I know where to go after it, and I know what price I need to pay. And I always take that approach, and I try to say, I'm going to figure out what an investor is buying, and I'm going to always try to go off market so that I can buy sub-wholesale. I want to buy a little bit cheaper than what everybody else is buying, so that I have options on my exit strategy. I could just wholesale it, flip it to somebody locally buying, and make a few nickels, put $3, $5, $7, $10, $15, $20,000 cash in my pocket for being a good deal finder. Or I can say, this is a great deal, and I know how people are making money because I've answered those 3 questions. I'm going to buy this one myself, and I'm going to keep it long term. Yeah. And so there's the market selection, then there's the geography, pinpointing those hot spots inside of the market, and it all predicates off of these things that we're talking about.
That's why Zip Finder, I think, is really cool as well, is because if the top zip code, the biggest circle on the map for you, shows a lot of activity, you would obviously look there first and answer your questions, but people may not be taking advantage of the next zip codes after that, because here's the thing: if you went into that large circle and you found a lot of buyer activity, but the inventory was starting to run low because it's been flipped through, same scenario as Tacoma, the push out could be going into the next line of circles that are there.
That's
where
right.
There is inventory.
That's exactly
and
right.
you could get in at the bottom in that scenario.
That's
because
exactly
it's not, you're not at those war zone zip codes that are all the way on the other side of the map that have no buyer activity. It's just the middle of the line where if the biggest zip code runs out of inventory, now you have retail buyers there, then it's obviously going to filter into the next possible zip codes.
And this is the stuff that most people miss, right? We're starting to talk somewhat complicated investor thinking, right? And people have a hard time running their calculator and doing basic math to say, if I want to make a 10% return on my money, what price can I pay? Like, people struggle with the basic math, right? And so when you start to add these extra level of thinking, right, it blows people away. Now, there's a simple process that should and could be followed by most people if they're willing to put in a little bit of the mental gymnastics to say, okay, let me try to understand this, right? I was wired to ask these questions. I wanted to understand it. When I was early, I didn't understand it, but I saw what Tacoma did. And I thought, wow, that's not happening where I live, but it's happening here. I wonder where else that's happening. I wonder where else there's different kinds of opportunity. And over the years, my investment thesis and my approach to investing in real estate has evolved to say, let's decide, what do I want? And then let's go find the market that will give me that the fastest and the easiest. And those are 2 key things. I want it fast and I want it easy. I don't want to beat my head against the wall. And I see so many real estate investors that beat their head against the wall for months, years, decades sometimes, because they take some action, they hit a roadblock and then they stop. And then they take some action, they hit a roadblock and then they stop, because they haven't put sort of this investment thought into okay, how does my geography play with my strategy? And how does my strategy play with my desired outcome? And when you start to build the triangle around geography, strategy, and desired outcome, magic can happen. Mm-hmm. And magic happens faster and more simple than most people believe.
Quick analogy. So when you're growing up as a kid, you spend the most time typically within your surroundings, your home, whatever situation you grew up in, and there's a point at a certain age where you just think every other household or every other kid grows up in the same scenario because that's all you know. So you just think, well, this is how it is to grow up. And then you have a sleepover at a friend's house for a birthday party or whatever, and you're like, wait a minute, this family, whatever that family unit looks like, this doesn't operate like what I grew up in. And I think what happens here is, based on where people live, they have this concept or they hear about this idea of investing remote, and you're, flipping this thought process on its head today with what we're talking about. But you just think that, well, every other market probably operates like the one I live in. Mm-hmm. So maybe you're in a market like Denver and you think, hey, this real estate thing, this is intriguing. Let me go to a couple local real estate club meetings, or you get in some online group, and if you're in a market like Denver, you're going to hear, in other higher price markets right now, you're going to hear deals are hard to come by. I'm beating my head against the wall. I'm thinking about getting out. And then you hear about, if you were to ask somebody, well, do you think there's real estate in St. Louis? Well, of course there is. Mm-hmm. But it's probably like Denver, deep down, because they just don't know.
Right.
Because, just like when you're a kid, hey, everybody probably grows up like I did. And then you get a little older and you're like, nope, not even close, right?
Totally.
People come from all sorts of different backgrounds. And so to take this concept of, I live here may be perfect. And if it is, if you're in a great market for what you're after, good for you, but don't blink, because that's not going to last forever. Right. It never does.
Right.
Right? To hear then that, wait a minute, I can go in as a kid, I could go see, what's it like where Adam grew up, or what's it like, where Sharon grew up, or whatever the case. We can do that through data, right? People just don't know how to do it. I'll be honest, Rob, I was going to say this. You're talking about Zip Finder. I think it's one of the most important features in FreedomSoft.
And it's one of the least understood,
constantly.
I think.
It is.
Least used. Well, up there with least used.
I wouldn't say that it's least used. I think it's least understood.
Yeah.
It's so powerful in that the way I've explained it, because I talk about it weekly, is let's say you get up on a Saturday morning and you want to go get involved in a pickup game of basketball. We have a couple options. You can go to a park or a rec center where there's no game being played and try to create one. That's hard work. Or you could just figure out where's the game being played already and just go there and jump in.
That was good.
I like it.
That's what Zip Finder does. Mm-hmm. I can pick any geography, and inside of 25 seconds, anywhere in the country, I can know here's where the game's being played.
That's right.
Here's where the biggest pickup game is. Here's where there's still some good games. And then down here is where there's some stragglers, but there's still some activity. And oh, by the way, in these 5 zip codes, there is no game being played on the investor side.
He comes up with this stuff uncaffeinated. He drinks no coffee.
I know, isn't it crazy?
I don't understand.
I know, I got my coffee right here. And he still came up with a better analogy than me.
This guy's on fire.
Yeah, I know. So
love it.
Here's what happens though. I show Zip Finder to people, and you plug it in and it's done in 30 seconds. And maybe it's because it's so fast, they think, well, yeah, that was quick, but how could anything super valuable take 20 seconds? It's a game changer, especially and let me explain, from a wholesaling standpoint. If you just want to go buy real estate or rental property in the town you grew up in of 20,000 people, knock yourself out.
Right.
But if you specifically want to wholesale, you need 2 things. You need a motivated seller and a motivated buyer. If you have one but without the other, you're not getting paid.
Right.
So specifically for wholesalers or for wholesaling and getting paid via that method in real estate, Zip Finder is the game changer. And Rob, we used to do this on another website, and it wasn't pretty, and nobody on their own could figure out how to go pull the zip codes. You showed me how to do it, so I always knew. But it was not user friendly. There was no map. They weren't in order, and you had to go do some brain damage to even figure this out.
Yeah, you had to be a data scientist to figure it out.
Right. It was not simple. And so Zip Finder went live, and it's a game changer. And then you were talking about two things: demand from buyers,
Yep.
and supply. Where can I go tie a deal up? Well, then there's another feature in FreedomSoft called Lead Finder, and I can go, how many vacant properties here? How many tired landlords? How many high equity? And in a matter, literally, this is, I think, for people that are struggling with this remote concept, we could say yay or nay on a market. Give me 5 minutes, and I'll spend the second half of that learning how to drink coffee, because I don't need the whole 5 minutes.
Right.
Right. If it tastes good, I would drink it. All right. I mean, this is simple.
You just don't understand how to make an Ethiopian pour over.
I don't. If it's not iced tea, I don't care for it.
That's amazing. There's this.
So, go ahead.
Well, just to speak to this, and I think you'll like this because it leads into the idea of what you've been into for many, many years, and that's teaching. And there's this saying that goes, if you want to ride a bike, you can probably figure that out. Put your feet down, move yourself along, find the balance. You want to drive a car? You might need somebody to sit in there with you and show you how to turn it on and get a little instruction. You want to fly a plane? You better have a mentor. You better have an instructor, somebody that can take you through that complicated system. Even if it seems simple, it's a complicated system, so you need that. So having somebody that can mentor you, can walk you through that fear and get you over that is so critical.
Yeah, and take that to the next level. Every new plane you fly, you don't just go jump in a new plane and fly it again. You go back and say, hey, instructor, I need you to teach me how to fly this plane. I know how to fly a plane.
How to fly
but
this plane.
I need you to teach me how to fly this plane.
Yeah.
Right.
And this plane, and this plane. And so great analogies. I love both of those. I love the bicycle to the car to the airplane. I love the pickup game of basketball. And what's really cool about that, if we take this back from market selection down to then using Zip Finder to identify the hot pockets of opportunity inside of a market, and then clicking two buttons after you run the Zip Finder search. I just smacked my microphone. After you run the Zip Finder search and you look at the map and you see the zip codes ranked, there's two buttons: find sellers, find buyers. Two buttons.
Right.
I'm pretty sure most people could click two buttons. And now you got your opportunity list and you got your exit strategy. You got supply and demand staring you in the face where the game is being played. Now,
right.
Fast forward this to now we're in the game, and I want to bring the sort of AI conversation that we started at the beginning full circle, because one of the things that we built in FreedomSoft about a year, maybe 15, 16 months ago was a tool called the Dig tool. And I want to bring this full circle because we're reframing how people perceive FreedomSoft in these discussions. And what I mean by that is a lot of times FreedomSoft, because its history comes out of being a CRM. Its history is it was one of the first CRMs to the market in the real estate space, and it created a persona, and it created an anchor to it being classified as a CRM. CRM is the smallest piece of what FreedomSoft is capable to do to help people make money, build wealth, change their financial future. And these conversations are intended to help people begin to see and wake up to the differences and the tools and the things that are out there. So full circle AI, we built what we call the infrastructure underlying this is Deal AI. And Deal AI is our interpretation of the real estate investors' approach to using AI to help in a couple of things: to help find opportunities, to help follow up with opportunities, and to help convert leads into profitable deals. And so when we start thinking about this, let's just say you picked your market, you listened to what we're talking about, maybe we coached you, we helped you, you picked your market, you went into that market, you used Zip Finder, you found your hottest pockets of opportunity, you clicked find sellers, you clicked find buyers, your lists are built in literally 30 seconds, and our technology did all the work for you. Okay. Now you're there. Now what do you do next? Well, we're on the heels of the 100 offer challenge. We just showed people what to do next. In the 100 offer challenge, step by step. We do this every single time. But now you've got an opportunity sitting on your dashboard. And Deal AI is an amplification tool. It's an opportunity amplifier. And specifically the dig tool is the amplification tool around list building and opportunity creation. And here's what it does. It looks at every single address in your CRM from the list you just built using Zip Finder, Find Sellers, Lead Finder, boom, you got your list. Now every single property on that list, you can click on it, open it, look at the property snapshot, and the dig tool will go to work for you and find you 8 additional opportunities. That's the AI between Deal AI and the dig tool saying, what are you looking for? What are you searching for? Where's the opportunity? Where's the money being made? Hey, we noticed that you're clicking on this one, or a lead came in. Hey, we noticed that you just generated a lead on this one. The dig tool says, here's 8 more opportunities similar that you might be interested in.
Yep, and within proximity.
Within proximity.
Yep.
Geographically oriented, motivation or circumstance oriented, property type, configuration oriented. Powerful tool. And I love watching. So when we built this, I love watching people experience the dig tool for the first time. When we built this, we decided to say, could we build a tool that produced a higher close rate of deals than the leads that were being generated to trigger the dig tool to go to work to begin with? And the answer to that was yes. More on a percentage basis, more dig tool opportunities close than the deals that created the opportunity to begin with. That's a pretty powerful thing. That's what starts to reframe real estate investors' minds around what FreedomSoft can do for their business. And that starts to be pretty fun because the 3 of us sitting here, and actually the 4 of us sitting here, I'm looking at you 2 guys, you're sitting over here in the dark on the side, pushing the buttons.
That's right.
The 4 of us sitting here, well, he's the guy that closed the most recent deal. Over here, the guy in the dark corner.
The guy on the switches.
The guy on the switches.
That's right.
Actually,
Thanks,
didn't you guys
Henry.
do that deal together?
One of his buyers that he initially hooked me up with on another deal came in and bought
Okay.
it. So, yeah,
Nice. All right, cool.
So what I heard is Joe owes Henry lunch.
Yeah.
definitely.
That's what,
No, we've already done deals together, and he wanted to give this one back to me, and I was like, dude, we all know this buyer now. It's like it's not a secret.
Yeah.
Nice.
I was being a generous JVer, just like trying to work together in case it comes back the other way.
Yeah.
You try to do that with people that you're working with and be upfront about it. And then he was cool about it. It was a little deal, $3,000, and he's like, man, just take it. He had 3 deals closing that week. Off this pack that he got.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah, man, just take it, and we know we'll do deals again together. So
Yep.
it was a
That's
little
the
give
that's
and
the
give.
Guys, no.
beautiful thing.
no. The better way to do this business is to perceive everybody else as your enemy. Yes. That's how
All
you
right,
build
guys.
strong, lasting networks.
We gotta get towards wrapping this. I don't even know how long we've been going, but we've probably been going about our allotted time. But we gotta wrap this up with the mogul memes. And all I wanted to say on that last little stretch before we got sidetracked with the guy sitting over here in the dark shadow, and the fact that we here in the office work together and close deals together and make money together, which is what we want people to hear from us, is that we get to see the tools and how to use them inside of FreedomSoft beyond CRM every single day. And we utilize them, and it produces results. And we want other people to start to experience and see that on a regular and consistent basis and reframe their mindset to think FreedomSoft equals CRM. Oh, no. It's much greater than that, especially when you start to learn how to use the tools that are built into that. And people will stop comparing FreedomSoft to every other CRM and start setting it in a category of its own.
Yeah, I mean, that's why Mike and I are so passionate about when we talk about these scenarios, is because, after we get off of this, we're going to go talk to 10 people a piece today, right, that are all using FreedomSoft or not using FreedomSoft. But it's a very common theme where we hear these mindsets and these not technically excuses, but just roadblocks that people are coming across.
Yep.
And that's why we're so passionate when we talk about these things on here, is because we live these things after and before the podcast.
Totally.
And we want those people to understand that it's not just a CRM. There's a lot of power behind the software.
100%.
And we're using it. We just want other people to see it too.
100%. All right, we got to get into this segment. It's called the Mogul Memes.
Yep, pop it up.
I got it popped up, but it's not showing.
Joe, did you get the one I sent you?
Go to full screen. Yeah.
Let's see. Let's go to slideshow here. Let's see if it
There we go.
updates. You see it?
Yep, it's up there.
Beautiful.
There we go.
We're not seeing it up on the big screen here. That's okay.
Interesting.
Let's see.
I can see it from over here on the other screen though.
Can you? All right. We'll go in here. Meme number 1. I don't know who
This one is mine.
this is you?
Yeah.
All right. Take it away.
When you shift to an abundant mindset, and this is the Django laughing. What's this dude's name? Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leo.
Yeah, let's go. Yep.
And that's key. When you switch to an abundance mindset, it's like game on.
Oh, game on. You can
Right?
see it. Oh, yeah. I love it.
Game on.
Yeah, and then
nobody can beat me.
We've been talking a lot about that, the mindset shift. And
100%.
Mike brings it up a lot, just to shift that mindset to where, I can do this. I see that it's doable. I'm in proximity to people that are doing it. So, yeah.
All right, the next one.
Rob, drop in your favorite line about abundance. Every other investor in your area is somebody you should.
Oh, yeah. Guys, I ran the Colorado Property Investors Association for years. I started it and I ran it. And what I always stood up on stage is I asked the room to look around, and I asked them what they saw. And I asked them if they saw competition, because we got a large audience to show up every single month. And people would always say, yeah, I see competition. And I encouraged people to change their mindset and change what they saw and how they viewed the other people in the room, because I told them everybody is somebody that you should buy from, sell to, or partner with on some deal. If you stop looking at the people in this room as your competition and start looking at the people in this room as the people that you are going to help, and they are going to help you make money and accomplish the goals, everybody's going to win. And we created a culture at the Colorado Property Investors Association that changed that mindset and got people doing deals together and making money. It was awesome. All right, so let's see. Me trying to find the perfect offer price.
Can you click that one?
Yeah, I'm going to play it here. Let's see if it'll play.
This is definitely spoke to yours last week. This was mine again.
This was yours?
Yeah.
Okay.
Trying to find the perfect offer. You're right. Everybody's trying to find, they don't make an offer because they don't know what to offer, right? And they're looking for the perfect number down to the 10 cents.
Right.
And that doesn't exist. Get in the game. We who did this one?
This one is mine
All
again.
right, you did this one too. I love
Joe
it.
for the win.
Yeah.
I love it. All right, let's go.
This is great.
Your productivity without FreedomSoft weak it is.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, the accent is great.
We
Like this one, I do.
like FreedomSoft, I do. All right. This is a good one. Just jumping off. This was a guy that worked with us in content that created this one. I can't take credit for this one.
I fell out of my chair when I saw this.
Trevor created this one a while ago, but I love it because you know what is it about stocks, right? You don't have control. You're stuck, right? You don't have control in so many different. And that could be a whole other show that we talk about. We won't get into that, but I love this. Stocks off the cliff.
I love it.
When the contract comes back signed. Yes.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, is that you?
Yeah. Joe said if I didn't come up with a meme this morning, I couldn't be on the podcast. So.
Yeah, I saw
right.
you walk in the Hall of Shame back to your office. I
Yeah.
saw that, yeah. All right. And let's see, what do we got here? Come on, baby. Let's go to the next one. That's all I got.
All right. That's
Sweet.
beautiful.
That's
I
it.
guess I didn't get yours.
No, I have a lot of fire coming your guys' way.
Well, we'll be
Next time.
we'll be excited
The one
to.
that I meant to send, and I'll just go ahead and say it because you were gone, and we thought we were gonna do we weren't gonna do the podcast, but I was the only one in the office and Joe, and I was like, we could run it. We could just do like this single podcast show, and I made a meme about. It was with the Tom Hanks movie, the "I'm the Captain Now" meme, and it was like when Rob's gone,
I remember that.
I'm the captain now of the podcast.
That's right.
All right, guys.
Awesome.
Hey, thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in to another show. Here's what I want you to do. This show was brought to you by FreedomSoft. I want you to be sure to like it and share it on your favorite podcast app. Share it out on social media. Go enjoy the YouTube. Subscribe. And with all of that being said, friends, we'll see you in the next one.
Later.